homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to wisdom warrior Manjushri, homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in 1,000,000 eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Next, we'll continue discussing relying on the teacher. We are now telling the story of Milarepa's devotion to Marpa Lotsawa. This is a true story about real people, and there are historical records with dates. Moreover, some of our Dharma friends have personally visited the Lodrak region, where some of the buildings that Milarepa practiced in still exist to this day, so this is not a legend. Through his diligence and perseverance, he ultimately achieved true accomplishment. Through such behavior, we encourage everyone in the process of relying on teachers and seeking the Dharma to spare no effort and never let your mind grow weary. As it says in the Ratnakutta Sutra, for the sake of seeking the Dharma, spare not body or life. Cultivate all virtuous roots without satisfaction. For the sake of seeking the Dharma, spare not body or life. For the sake of practicing the true Dharma or any virtuous roots, whatever difficulties we encounter, we cannot develop aversion or weariness. Therefore, through such stories and examples, we should repeatedly examine and observe ourselves. I think among those present here, except for a very few, whose level is quite low, the plot and content of the story should be clear at a glance. Even if I don't read this story, you can finish reading it all in just a few minutes. We can say all the content is easy to understand. But in actual practice, when we examine ourselves or study together, whether our mind stream is moved and changed after study, this point is very crucial. Actually, regarding listening to the Dharma, I now have this feeling. For example, when we listen to Dharma daily and study daily, when afflictions in our mind stream arise, we can immediately eliminate and suppress them. Virtuous roots in our mind stream grow gradually, not necessarily with immediate dramatic results, but they can grow gradually and imperceptibly in our mind stream. If you don't study or learn anything about the Dharma at all, after some time, your mind stream becomes increasingly distant from the true Dharma. So now, whether in cities or we practitioners living in quiet places, we all need the nectar of Buddhism to continuously nourish our hearts. Without this, indeed our habitual tendencies, the habits accumulated since beginningless time, are particularly frightening. Moreover, in this lifetime, we are also influenced by our surrounding environment, the education we receive, and the relatives and friends we associate with, as well as deep-rooted obstacles in our own mind stream. Our behavior gradually becomes non-virtuous and increasingly distant from the true Dharma. At such times I feel it's particularly regrettable to have come to this world. Therefore, we must seek the teachings of spiritual teachers. Otherwise, when we leave this world, or once we realize that we obtained human life but didn't truly seek the true Dharma, we will feel tremendous regret in our hearts. So the Sutra on the Six Perfections also says, spiritual teachers are difficult to encounter. If you don't trust and accept them, what can you do when regret comes? Spiritual teachers are very difficult to encounter and rare. If when we have the opportunity, we don't rely on them or accept their teachings, once we lose such conditions and opportunities, we will surely feel enormous regret in our hearts. But at that time, regret will be too late. It will be too late, already delayed, with nothing to be done. So many people today should recognize that the opportunity to rely on spiritual teachers directly or indirectly is precious and rare, and everyone should cherish it. We should use such conditions to definitely obtain the Dharma of liberation. Sometimes when we reflect on our life journey, we feel very comforted at this time. Why? During a period of our life, we had such a beautiful period of relying on spiritual teachers. Actually, at that time, in terms of actual living conditions, we might have been particularly poor compared to now. But spiritually, meaningfully, and in terms of true merit for this and future lives, I often consider this the most meaningful period of life. So each of our Dharma friends should not regard relying on spiritual teachers with the attitude of a worldly scholar following a worldly teacher. From a worldly perspective, receiving worldly knowledge from a teacher or mentor, you only need one part respect and reverence. Beyond that, there's nothing particularly special, like the devotion and faith of Milarepa and Naropa, because the world has its own patterns and proper ways. As long as you don't violate them, having respect before the teacher is sufficient. But Mahayana Buddhism is different from this. So regarding these matters as Mahayana practitioners, we should repeatedly observe. Now let's return to the story above and continue our analysis. At the same time, the guru and his consort also had many auspicious dreams. Actually, there used to be a thick biography of Milarepa. Once when I was in middle school, I fell seriously ill. Later, I had a relative who was a doctor. He was a monk. I left school and received treatment there for over half a month. During that time, every evening I had that Lama read to me. At that time, I was deeply impressed. I felt each section, each story of experience was particularly moving. Some episodes I've now forgotten, but some episodes still basically remain in my memory. Actually, at that time, Marpa Lotsawa and his consort had an auspicious dream the night before Milarepa's arrival. What kind of dream? At that time, Marpa dreamed of Naropa, who gave him a crystal vajra. The tip of the vajra had a bit of dust on it. He also gave him a golden vase filled with nectar and instructed, use the nectar in the golden vase to wash clean the dust on the crystal vajra. After that, you should place it atop a victory banner. Marpa Lotsawa followed his guru's instructions and did so. As a result, this vajra emitted boundless light, illuminating the entire 3,000-fold universe, bringing joy to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas above and happiness and joy to all beings in the 6 realms below. He had such an auspicious dream. When he woke up, his Dakini consort had also had a dream. Her dream was also about a crystal stupa that was also given by her teacher, Naropa. She was asked to wash away some dust that was on it. After washing it, she consecrated it, and after consecration, it benefited limitless beings. The Dakini was also very joyful in the morning and came to tell Marpa Lotsawa, I had such and such a good dream yesterday. What does it mean? Marpa Lotsawa clearly knew this dream was a very good sign, but outwardly he told the Dakini, dreams are illusions. There's nothing to be attached to. I don't know either. From the entire story, Marpa Lotsawa appeared outwardly to have a particularly bad temper. Whether with his consort or with disciples, he seemed incompatible with everyone around him. So at that time he said, I don't know what it means either, but at that time he requested. He also knew that today a particularly excellent disciple would come, a particularly remarkable disciple. He should have known this. Moreover, he asked his consort to prepare well today. Prepare the farming tools and also prepare a bottle of fine wine for me. Today, I'm going to the fields to prepare for farming. At that time, his consort tried to stop him, saying, You are a renowned master in this area. If you go to the farmland to work as a farmer, others will gossip. It's better if you don't go. She spoke, but in the end, he didn't listen. There was nothing to be done, so his consort had no way to stop him. Knowing that Milarepa was about to arrive, Marpa Lotsawa disguised himself as a farmer ploughing the fields and went to the roadside at Cholagang to meet him. Milarepa first encountered the teacher's son, Dharma Dode. Originally, Milarepa had been asking for directions along the way. At first he didn't know where Trawalung was and kept asking. Later, when he roughly knew the direction to Trawalung, he asked the local people if there was someone called the very famous direct disciple of Pandita Naropa, the great translator Marpa Lotsawa, who was accomplished in both Sutra and Tantra. Whether there was such a venerable name, he asked everywhere. Many people said they didn't know and had never heard of him. Once he saw an old man and asked him, but he said he didn't know. Beside him was a particularly lovely, beautiful and excellent young boy. This young boy also appeared clever and bright. He was very delighted and said, You're probably looking for my father. My father is called Marpa Lotsawa. At that time he also roughly knew. He said, Today, though he usually never goes to the fields, he originally converted all our family wealth into gold and went to India. Later, he brought back some long scripture volumes and concentrates at home every day. I don't know what happened today that he wants to go work in the fields. He spoke like this at that time. At this time, he had basically probably already found out Dharma Dode was herding animals by himself. Then Milarepa continued on his journey. There was a place called Cholagang's Slope. He thought, how wonderful it would be if I met my teacher on this slope. How wonderful it would be to meet him on this slope where the Dharma spreads widely. Not long after thinking this, he saw ahead a person of mighty stature with penetrating eyes, a particularly remarkable person at the crossroads. He met Marpa Lotsawa at the crossroads, though at that time he didn't recognize him as Marpa Lotsawa at all. When they first met, just as described earlier, he experienced an inconceivable, indescribable feeling of joy, an ineffable feeling of delight. All his sharp, confused, conceptual thoughts about this world were completely extinguished. With a truly connected teacher, when we see him or hear his name, our worldly, impure, conceptual thoughts are immediately extinguished. Then he was momentarily stunned, in a state of having nothing to do, in a state of clarity and luminosity, momentarily stunned. At that time he didn't recognize his teacher at all, so he explained the reason for coming to visit Marpa Lotsawa. He said, I am from Tsang, a person with very heavy negative karma. I heard there is a particularly famous person called Marpa Lotsawa here. I've come here personally to receive teachings and study the Dharma. Moreover, I was introduced by Master Rongten Laga. This is the letter of introduction. Is there a letter? Did he write one? He wrote one, right? What did the letter of introduction say? That tall person then said, I can introduce you to Marpa Lotsawa. You come help me plow this field. After saying this, he gave him a full bottle of wine and left. Because he had just brought a bottle of wine from home, it seemed that Marpa Lotsawa had taken 2 sips. Milarepa watched from the side, and it looked especially fragrant and delicious. He really wanted to drink it too, but didn't dare to say so. At this time the teacher said to him, I can help you find Marpa Lotsawa. You help me plow this field and I'll come back in a while. He probably said this at that time. Then Marpa Lotsawa drank a little bit of wine and left the rest there. After that person left, Milarepa went over because he had been wanting to drink it. He drank all the remaining wine in one gulp, finishing it completely. This was also an auspicious connection. Later, all the realizations in Marpa Lotsawa's mind stream were poured into him like a full bottle being emptied. Such an auspicious connection. After that, he plowed all the land completely. At this time, that son Dharma Dode from earlier came over to call Milarepa. Milarepa said, I'll finish plowing all this land first, then leave. Perhaps the teacher had sent him to call. Later he said, I haven't finished plowing yet. I'll leave after finishing. Later this field was called Auspicious Conditions Field, and I hear it still exists now. I once saw a photograph. There's also a patch of land. Now it seems there aren't any fields there, just a patch that looks very comfortable. They took photos in summer. The teacher sent his son to call Milarepa back for an audience. Dharma Dode led him to the teacher's house. When they went to the teacher's house, that same person was sitting on a 3-tiered Dharma throne with golden bull and Garuda patterns. He looked particularly robust, with his belly protruding. His face looked as if freshly washed, with a bit of dust on his eyebrows. He sat there with wide open eyes. He recognized him as the same person from before. Milarepa thought, Nin, this is that same person from before. Where exactly is Marpa Lotsawa? He kept looking around searching for the teacher. Later he said, I am Marpa Lotsawa. Why are you looking around everywhere? What are you looking for? It's me. Later he began to speak. After Milarepa came before him, he began to prostrate. And after prostrating he said, Teacher, I am a great sinner from the Lhasa region. I offer my body, speech and mind to the teacher. I request the teacher to grant me food, clothing, and the true Dharma. May I achieve accomplishment in this very life. This is what he said when he arrived. I come from the Utsang region. I offer my body, speech and mind completely to you. You must provide for my livelihood and also bestow the true Dharma. Also, you must make me achieve Buddhahood in this very life. These 3 conditions he presented to the teacher. Then the teacher said, Your negative karma is heavy. Don't blame me. What's it got to do with me? It's nothing. I didn't make you create these negative actions. But exactly what kind of negative actions did you create? He asked him. So Milarepa described in detail the entire process of his negative actions. What his family was like at the beginning and later, when there was really no other way. His mother sent him elsewhere to learn black magic. Then he began cursing his relatives and friends, killing many beings. Later, when he really couldn't bear it anymore, renunciation arose in his heart. He relied on Rongten Laga, who introduced him to go to you. So I have come here today. He told the entire story to Marpa. Because Milarepa's biography is thick, I won't tell you all of it here. If I told it all, you might doze off. He told it in great detail. I'm just giving a brief account, right? The teacher said, in any case, offering body, speech, and mind is good. Body, speech, and mind. Nowadays, many people, as His Holiness also mentioned before, many people first say, I want to offer my body, speech, and mind. But offering body, speech, and mind is not very easy. After 2 days, they just leave without even saying goodbye. Originally, the body was offered, but then they took the body and ran away. This phenomenon is very common. Offering body, speech, and mind is good, but clothing, food, and the Dharma, I cannot give you all three. Offering body, speech, and mind, this I can accept. Giving you clothing, food, and Dharma all together is difficult. Either I give you clothing and food, and you seek the Dharma elsewhere, or I can only transmit the Dharma to you, and you seek clothing and food elsewhere. Between these two, you can freely choose either one. If you choose for me to bestow the true Dharma upon you, whether you can achieve accomplishment in this life depends mainly on your own diligence and perseverance. If your diligence is quite good, and your perseverance is quite good, and you work especially hard in all aspects, it's very possible to achieve accomplishment in this life. At that time, Marpa Lotsawa answered him very completely. The questions he asked were answered one by one. At this time, Milarepa thought to himself, my purpose in coming here to rely on the teacher is to seek the Dharma. If the teacher doesn't provide me with living expenses, then I can only find them elsewhere myself. I can go look for clothing and food elsewhere. But later he still requested, Teacher, could I stay beside you, or here, for a few days? At that time he agreed, and he went to the teacher's shrine room. When he went to the shrine room, the teacher again began to criticize him. He had brought some books on hailstorms and sorcery with him. The teacher said, don't bring these books into my shrine room. Otherwise, the negative energy from your books will contaminate my Dharma protectors. Don't stay in my shrine room. He drove him out. Then his consort cleared out another small room for him. He stayed here for a few days, and his consort also provided for him. From the entire story, I don't know how they acted it out. In what I watched before, Marpa Lotsawa appeared particularly fierce, as if everything was very difficult to get along with, but his consort everywhere appeared particularly compassionate. Yet she had no authority, only a kind heart. She was crying all the time. She expressed everything with tears. I had this feeling. I don't know how they acted it. I didn't watch it in detail. I just watched a bit that day. When I saw Milarepa, later I didn't have time to watch. How did the consort act? Okay, right? In making movies, you must act out each person's character. Each person's character is different. This is fundamental. What else should I talk about? Where are we? So he stayed at the teacher's place for a few days, then went to the Lodrak area to beg for alms. As it turned out, it went quite well. He obtained 21 Tibetan measures, basically now 21 liters of barley. 1 liter is about 4 katis. If calculated this way, I figured it's about 80 katis. At that time, conditions weren't very good. Actually, conditions in that area have never been very good. It's still like that now. With 14 Tibetan measures of barley, he exchanged them for a 4-cornered copper pot. The copper pot was like a large lamp bowl, that kind of large lamp vessel. Here it's called a copper pot, but it's actually a lamp bowl. He exchanged 14 measures for the lamp bowl, with 7 Tibetan measures of barley remaining. From the 7 measures, with about 1 measure, he bought some wine and meat to offer to his teacher. The other barley he put in a sack. Then, carrying the copper pot and other things, he returned to offer them to his teacher. Milarepa piled the barley in the teacher's house. When he put it down, thump, a big sack. He thought that since he had worked so hard to carry it up, the teacher would be especially happy. So he carried it up with great effort and put it in the teacher's room. He placed that lamp bowl, the copper pot, in front of the teacher. All the other barley and things he put on the floor of the teacher's dwelling. Then the floor, thump, the whole house shook. It almost filled the entire room. This house must have been very small. I'm thinking, one sack of barley placed there filled the entire house. Afterward, he proudly offered it to the teacher. He thought the teacher would probably be very delighted. The teacher stood up and began scolding. "You young man with such great strength, do you want to use your physical strength to crush us people to death? Quickly take all this barley outside." While saying this, he kicked him with his foot. "You must get all this barley outside." In the end, Milarepa could only offer the empty copper pot-shaped lamp bowl. The rest he had no choice but to throw outside. Actually, it wasn't much, but the teacher appeared particularly unhappy, except for the lamp bowl, that pot. Everything was thrown out. After throwing it out, when Marpa Lotsawa saw that lamp vessel, he appeared very joyful. Then he held it in his hands and sat for a while. Later, tears streamed down his face as he said, "Today, the auspicious connection is very good. I will offer this to Naropa." Then he took this lamp vessel to the shrine room. He put some butter in it and began offering lamps, appearing particularly joyful. Other than this, he always appeared unhappy. At that time, in Milarepa's heart, he developed a different kind of feeling. He thought, "Sigh, this teacher must never be provoked. I must be careful in the future." He thought this in his heart, but he didn't develop conceptual thoughts or wrong views thinking the teacher was bad. I must be careful in the future, otherwise because he just kicked me with his foot. At such times he thought, "This teacher cannot be provoked. I must be careful in the future, otherwise how dangerous it would be." He kept thinking this way in his heart repeatedly. This is one section. Once the teacher said, "Many disciples from Yutsang who have faith in me are often beaten by people from Yamdrok Taklung and the Lingpa region. When many of the teacher's benefactors and disciples come, people from these two places often beat his disciples, so they cannot smoothly come to offer food and drink. You go send down hailstorms at those two places. This is also a kind of practice. If it's effective, I will transmit supreme pith instructions to you." At this time, Milarepa was probably quite happy in his heart, because sending down hailstorms could be said to be his specialty. For him it was, nowadays some singers say, "This song is my strongest suit." Sending down hailstorms was easiest for him, so he was probably very happy. Then Venerable Milarepa brought down hailstorms upon these two places. Many people and animals in those areas died. Basically, all the crops were completely destroyed. After achieving these results, he requested pith instructions before his teacher. At that time, the teacher said, "You brought down 2 or 3 hailstones and want to obtain the Dharma I painstakingly brought from India. How beautiful you think! That's impossible. If you truly want to obtain the Dharma, the people of the Lodrak area often beat up my disciples from Nualoro and treat me with great contempt as well. Go there and curse them, and if your magic proves effective and shows clear results, then I will transmit to you the pith instructions of the great Pandita Naropa for achieving Buddhahood in one lifetime." The first hailstorm didn't earn him transmission. Then after you brought this down, he definitely had to give these to me. If other people might observe this teacher, how can this teacher be like this? How does he protect my disciples and still demand that those who despise me must be subdued and cursed? He has not a trace of bodhicitta in his mind stream. Why is he so attached to himself? Such discriminating thoughts might arise, very likely. Because ordinary people, with the little bit of Dharma principles they understand, begin to judge some of the teacher's actions. From appearances, it seems he cares greatly about his own disciples, about those who offer him food and drink. If anyone creates obstacles for him, he must subdue them, must curse them. He has such an attitude. When I first began reading this part, I really felt that at that time, Venerable Milarepa only maintained pure perception and followed instructions. Beyond this, he certainly didn't have a single thought of finding fault with his teacher. If it were like us, following Marpa Lotsawa's actions, we might not necessarily develop faith, Because at that time, in our eyes, Marpa Lotsawa was just someone who went to India to receive such pith instructions. Before people's ordinary eyes, he also had a consort and children. His family wasn't very wealthy, and sometimes he was greedy for money. Sometimes he appeared to people with a rather rough temperament overall. In this case, for us to always be single-minded and follow instructions would probably have certain difficulties. But this point, we should, in the future, in the process of relying on a teacher, remember that the teacher is the most fundamental condition for bringing us pith instructions. So, this condition is best not to be destroyed. If it is destroyed, to completely obtain transcendent realization states through self-effort alone is indeed very difficult. Throughout history, the great masters and accomplished beings should have had a kind of respect, devotion, and joy toward their teachers. With such an attitude, they finally achieved mind-to-mind transmission. The teacher's wisdom merged as one with their own conceptual mind. Finally, when you attain such a state, then all the words you speak are perfectly in accordance with the Dharma. Moreover, even a single sentence you speak has inconceivable benefit. For countless sentient beings, if we have no realization in our mind stream, if my mind stream is completely that of an ordinary person, then the words spoken from my mouth may not necessarily have such great effect and power for sentient beings. Therefore, many great accomplished beings should have teachers' guidance. This is the most wonderful and important experience in each person's Buddhist learning journey. One must analyze this from the depths of one's heart. At that time, he said, "The pith instructions of my entire lifetime can be transmitted to you." At that place, the cursing power equally achieved the expected results. When he cursed them, the people of that region, the people of the Lodrak area mentioned earlier, civil war broke out, and they killed many people among themselves, especially that group who opposed the teacher. They all died completely. Later, he also felt that this cursing had been successful. If I go before the teacher, he will surely joyfully transmit teachings to me. Milarepa went to his teacher to request the teachings. When requesting the teachings, the teacher laughed coldly. "Ha ha! You want those teachings that I obtained at the risk of my life? The ones I brought back in exchange for much gold, still carrying the warm breath of the Dakinis, as a reward for someone like you with such heavy negative karma? That would be extremely ridiculous, perhaps acceptable as a joke. This is really too ridiculous. There's no way I can transmit to him. If it weren't me, if it were another person, they might kill you. It's just that my temper is a bit better. Otherwise, if it was someone else, with you desperately killing and harming these beings, trying to exchange such evil deeds for what I brought with gold, painstakingly brought from India to have this Dharma transmitted to you, that would be impossible. Now, you yourself go compensate for the crops of the Yamdrak region, and bring back to life all the people of Lodrak. If you can accomplish this, I can transmit to you. Otherwise, don't stay here. Don't come here. Just leave me alone. Don't stay here." At that time, Venerable Milarepa also, on one hand, to restore all the crops completely, to bring the dead back to life. He didn't have this ability. At that time, he had only learned cursing, able to kill, but to restore them, he didn't have this ability. So he was extremely sad. Receiving such rebuke from his teacher, he was sad to the extreme. He was almost completely disheartened, crying for a very long time. Fortunately, at that time, the teacher's wife came before him and comforted him continuously. She told him, "Don't cry. There's a way. You'll definitely be able to obtain the Dharma in the future," she kept telling him. Otherwise, at that time, he might have left. Actually, in the process of relying on his teacher, he often thought of suicide. Continuously unable to obtain pith instruction, several times it was like this. The teacher didn't understand him either, didn't understand many of his actions. Not only did he not transmit the Dharma, but he also beat him severely. After this, he very much wanted to leave. The next morning the teacher came to comfort him, saying, "Last night I scolded you perhaps a bit too severely. Don't be unhappy. Take it slowly, don't be anxious. I will transmit pith instructions to you. You are a person diligent in work. Help my son Dharma Dode." In the biography, I remember it seems his son Dharma Dode's house was in the back. Build for him in this place perhaps a shrine hall or something. Construct a house for storing scriptures. After completion, I will not only transmit pith instructions to you, but also prepare some clothing and food for you. Originally, I said the Dharma would definitely be transmitted to you, but clothing and food you'd solve yourself. But now, if you can complete this construction, I can transmit the Dharma to you. Venerable Milarepa said this. What if I die during this period without having received the Dharma? Teacher, I can build for you, but before building, I'm a construction worker every day, going there to carry stones every day. I haven't heard any Dharma at all. What if I die in between? Many people doing service work in our academy often have this feeling too. I go outside or do service work not practicing well. What if I die in between? And at that time, the teacher told him this. I can guarantee you won't die during this period. You are someone who cannot die. Regarding the Dharma, one also cannot be too boastful. It said you are a very diligent person. If you can put in effort to practice my pith instructions, perhaps you'll achieve Buddhahood in this very life. He comforted him this way. After such earnest instruction, he had Venerable Milarepa build a circular house on the eastern mountain. Actually, he built it through 3 processes. After this one was completed, let me see if what's in front is the same. The teacher had him build a circular house on the eastern mountain. Then he carried materials from very far away, wood, stones, all carried by himself alone. When it was halfway done, the teacher said, I didn't consider it well at the time, so this place cannot be built. You'd better put all the original materials back to their original place and tear it down again. Then the teacher required him to build a semicircular house on the western mountain. The materials here had to be carried from several miles away. Then he kept building and building, and when it was half done, the teacher said again, because I was drunk at the time, I didn't pay attention. Now if we build here, it's not good in all aspects. You'd better put all the materials back to their original place. Don't build any more. Stop. He made him stop work and put all the materials, those stones and wood, all back to their original places. Then he was to go to the northern mountain to build a triangular house. When it hadn't been built yet, Venerable Milarepa also said, Teacher, you must consider carefully this time. Otherwise, in the beginning you didn't consider well. The second time you were drunk. You must consider carefully now. Otherwise, after I finish building, if I have to take all the materials back to their original places again, for me it would be truly unbearable. You must think clearly. He said, no problem, it must definitely be built. This place is a vital spot for practicing magnetizing activities or other activities. Very important, it must be completed. Then when he had built 1/3 of it, the teacher said, this place cannot be built. This place is also harmful to my longevity and harmful to Buddhism. This terrain is particularly inauspicious. At that time, Milarepa said, didn't you originally say, teacher, that you had decided after deep consideration? How can you change again now? He said, I never said that. I never said that. I'm not crazy either. If I had said it, I would definitely remember. No matter what, he wouldn't admit it. What witnesses do you have? When did I ever say that? Later, Milarepa had no choice but to tear it down. After tearing it down, all the materials were put back to their original places. All these houses were only built halfway. Of course, the last one was perhaps 1/3, when he ordered, scolded, and commanded him to tear them all down, returning all the earth and stones to their original places. During the process of carrying earth and stones, Venerable Milarepa developed a sore on his back. He thought to himself that if he showed it to the teacher, he would only be scolded, which would be meaningless. If he showed it to the teacher's wife, it would seem like complaining or boasting without much necessity, so he told no one and could only cry alone. Later, he called his Dharma friends to request transmission, and the teacher's wife also requested transmission. Because he had already built 3 times according to the teacher's instructions, he went to request transmission. The teacher told his wife, go prepare some abundant food and drink, then bring this. At this time, he often called him Great Strength because his strength was quite great. Milarepa often carried stones. Let Great Strength come over too. After Venerable Milarepa came, after the teacher finished reciting the refuge lineage and transmitted the refuge vows, he said to him, these are all common teachings. If you want to obtain the uncommon tantric pith instructions, you also need to act accordingly. Then he briefly narrated from Venerable Naropa's biography, the 12 great austerities, and 12 small austerities. Then he said, "Someone like you probably cannot endure austerities. Can you endure austerities?" After Venerable Milarepa heard this, he also felt extremely moved. Seeing that Venerable Naropa, in the process of relying on his teacher, underwent such austerities, he felt as if his own austerities were also insufficient, so he kept making up his mind. After hearing this, Milarepa developed strong faith, tears streaming down his face, and made a firm vow to strictly follow the teacher's commands. After a few days, the teacher again took him to a dangerous place in the southwest, a particularly perilous place. It's said this place also wasn't Marpa Lotsawa's land, but belonged to other people in the surrounding area. People were also unwilling to give this land to Marpa Lotsawa. This was a place with considerable controversy. Then Marpa Lotsawa told him, "Build me here a grayish-white, square, 9-story building, plus the jewel on top. Some accounts say it's a storehouse, altogether 10 stories. After it's built, I won't tear it down again, and I can also transmit pith instructions to you. If you practice single-mindedly, I'll also prepare some provisions for you." That's what he said at the time. At that time, he thought repeatedly in his heart, perhaps after building it, it will also be torn down. So at that time, he requested the teacher's wife, "Could you please be my witness?" Later, he told the teacher, "I've already done this 3 times before. Once you didn't consider well, the second time you were drunk, the third time, although you agreed, you said there were no witnesses. If I build this time, if I build like this, when it's finished, it's very likely to be completely torn down again. In that case, I would also feel particularly sad. Could you this time let the teacher's wife be a witness, guaranteeing no demolition? If so, I'll build the 10-story building for you without problem." Later, he also agreed, and the teacher's wife bore witness, saying this time it was guaranteed not to be torn down, and then construction continued. During the construction process, when he was laying the foundation, the teacher's 3 great heart sons, during their play, rolled down a large stone, which he conveniently used for laying the foundation. His 3 great disciples, these 3 venerable ones, were actually Marpa Lotsawa's 3 heart sons, 3 great disciples. At that time, perhaps out of curiosity or for some other reason, seeing Milarepa performing austerities there, they also helped him. Perhaps while playing, they also rolled some stones to help him together. Some accounts say it was several stones, some say it was 1 stone. 1 stone was placed below as foundation. When the 2nd floor had just been completed, the teacher came to look and pointed to that stone, asking, "Where was this stone taken from?" He explained, saying it was the teacher's 3 great heart sons who rolled it down during their play. "I really couldn't find stones. This place is particularly, and this place is so steep and dangerous, all 10,000-foot deep cliffs. It's said that now, after people see this place, it's an extremely, extremely difficult place to build. A cliff like a sword. Building here is particularly difficult, so I finally got a large stone to place on top." At that time, the teacher appeared extremely, extremely displeased. "My several disciples are yogis practicing generation and completion stages. How could they become your servants? Quickly remove that stone and return it to its original place." At first, when he asked this question, "There's still some in between here," he said after taking it out, he should put it back to its original place. Then Venerable Milarepa had no choice but to demolish it, the 2nd floor above, tearing it down, then the stones below. At that time, Milarepa also said, "Didn't you say not to demolish it with your wife as witness?" Then Marpa Lotsawa said, "I said not to demolish. That's fine, but you take out the large stones below and put them back in their original place." Later, because if he wanted to take out those large stones below, it would be impossible without dismantling the top, so he had to demolish it first and take that large stone back to its original place. When he took it to the original place, the Guru told him again, "You can now bring back that large stone from just now and place it here." Milarepa said, "Didn't you just say, Guru, that this stone should be taken back and cannot be used? What I meant was that they shouldn't come help you take it. You can bring it yourself from far away. You can now bring it from that place and rebuild it again. If it were any of us others, this would truly be tormenting someone." Then he had no choice but to listen. The Guru said again, "You carry it back yourself and place it on top." He carried it back and placed it as before, continuing the construction. It seems when it reached the 7th floor, those other landowners all said, "Should we create obstacles for Marpa Lotsawa? This is our land, we won't let him build." Later, some people said, "Marpa Lotsawa, usually when he builds halfway, he will demolish it. Maybe we don't need to say anything, he'll demolish it himself." So these landowners also didn't make him demolish it. When it reached the 7th floor, a sore developed on his waist. At that time, it seems those people, when it reached the 7th floor, they all felt it probably wouldn't be demolished, so they organized the local people into a team preparing to attack. At that time, Marpa Lotsawa manifested as many soldiers surrounding the area. At this time, those residents had no choice but to confess before the manifested bodies. There was such a process too. The guru came to him again and said, "You temporarily stop this construction project and build below an inner hall with 12 pillars, a great reception hall. Build something like this." He started building again. When this building was completed, a sore developed on his back. At that time, Meton Sompo from Tsangrong came seeking the Chakra Samvara empowerment, and Surton Wangye from Dol came seeking the Guhya Samaja empowerment. When these two came, the house construction project was about to be completed, so Milarepa ran over, hoping to receive empowerment. He sat himself in the empowerment assembly. At this time, the guru demanded that he make an offering without an offering. He wasn't allowed to stay and was driven out again. As a result, he again suffered the guru's scolding and beating and was driven out from the empowerment assembly. At that time, it seems his guru's wife said this. Originally, Marpa Lotsawa is especially compassionate to even a single life, even a dog. I don't know why he's so harsh with you. Sometimes I really don't understand either. She spoke to him like this. At that time, Venerable Milarepa's back was already covered with wounds, 3 sores flowing with pus and blood, causing unbearable pain. But he still carried earth vessels on his back, only able to continue building the house. I once saw in a book published by a publishing house, he was there with a carrying basket, continuously carrying stones. Seeing that photograph, I felt in my heart this spirit of ascetic practice is truly inconceivable. On another occasion, Ngokton Chodor from Shung came seeking the Havajra empowerment. At that time, his guru's wife had a large turquoise from her private property. Some biographies say it was a ruby. Actually, this ruby belonged to his guru's wife herself when she originally married him. Her family said, "Marpa Lotsawa has a bad temper. Once you encounter difficulties there and life becomes a bit tight, you'd better use it yourself, secretly." Now, some householders in the cities, without the husband knowing, without the wife knowing, secretly saving money in the bank themselves, they gave her a gem privately. This gem later had to be given to Milarepa. Later, the guru discovered it again. Where did this gem come from? He said it was given by the guru's wife. Everything belonging to the guru's wife is entirely mine. What right does she have? Using it as an offering, he sat in the empowerment assembly again. As a result, like the previous time, he also received a beating and scolding, and still did not receive the empowerment. Let's talk up to here.
Bandara Bana Sodargye Bandara Bana Sodargye Bandara Bana Sodargye